Welcome, dear friends. Here we are with another day, another study, another opportunity to learn with Emmanuel. Today's message comes to you and I from the book Words of Life Eternal, chapter 35. Let us observe with love. So we're going to write it down on the screen so we know what we're talking about. Let's us observe with love. In this message, Emmanuel starts with a Bible quote from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 7, verse 3. And this verse is, "Why do you seek the speck in your brother's eyes, Jesus?" Right? So today we're going to learn to observe others in spite of their eye speck with love. Emmanuel comments, "We commonly maintain the habit of focusing on the shortcomings of others while completely forgetting our own. We exaggerate the probable weaknesses of our neighbor and judge the behavior of our brothers with harshness and severity." Isn't that true, friends? We are very likely to be looking at the shortcomings of others. And we are being honest, right? This is a morning study and reflection where you and I go deep and you say, yes, sometimes I do focus on what's missing, not what is already there. Jesus is not going to point to you and I and say, "Oh, I see you're still not a superior spirit." No, Jesus is going to say, yes, you can be kind. You're already compassionate. You're able to serve others, right? Because when we focus on the shortcomings of others, what are we not doing? Looking at our own and working on improving ourselves, which is the only thing we have control over, right? How we behave, what we learn, what we do, what we don't do affects the lives we have and also affects those around us. So it's very important that we observe what's going on, the shortcomings, the good things, where could I be? And he says, Emmanuel continues, the master's question, what is the question? Why do you see the speck in your brother's eyes in Matthew 7, chapter 3, awakens us to the need for our own education, since in general, we discover in others only what we ourselves are. Another beautiful way that even psychology of today knows, when we focus on the mistakes of others, we focus on what in them that I still have. We discover in others what we are. So if I am complaining that people are disorganized, it's likely that I am disorganized. If I'm complaining that people are not considerate, it's likely that I'm not considerate, so on and so forth. For our benefit, let us remember Christ's attitude when evaluating those who crossed his path. So Jesus, in the Gospels and in the books such as Good News, Jesus in the Home and others, through the works of Spiritism, we learn how Jesus acted when others came his way. And what did he do? He loved them. He served them. He didn't judge them, right? So that's what we need to do as Christians who consider Jesus our guide and our model. And he will continue, Emmanuel. For many, Mary Magdalene was an obsessed and inconvenient woman. But for him, for Jesus, she appeared as a beautiful feminine heart, troubled by unspeakable anguish, who once understood and supported, would spread throughout the world the sunshine of the resurrection. So remember, Mary Magdalene was the first one to see Jesus after he was resurrected. Jesus chose her, not one of his male apostles, chose Mary Magdalene. Everybody saw her as an obsessed and inconvenienced. When we see others doing things in the world that we don't approve, they are inconvenient to us. And this, and in conjunction with the Gospel according to Spiritism, chapter 9, we know, right? When we are looking for the defects of others, we're really looking at deepening our knowledge of ourselves. Next example, Zacchaeus was an usurer with tarnished and unhappy hands, right? So it was businessman. So 1 second. White Zacchaeus was a tax collector, right? He was taking the money from people and giving it to the Romans, who were the conquerors. For him, for Jesus, he was a friend of work whom he would impart elevated notions of progress and true wealth, right? Because Zacchaeus changed, he treated his employees right. So when we have wealth, when we know of work, when we are able to have a company, which is not for everybody, some lead, some follow, that's okay. But if you're the leader and you're responsible for other people's lives, are we elevating them to progress, to improve? Are we showing to others what it is to have true wealth? What is the meaning of having $100 million, $1 billion, $2 billion, right? If others around us cannot enjoy and are having a hard life, there's nothing wrong with wanting more, to be ambitious, to want things that are better for us. But we have to balance. Are we really using true wealth, as some philanthropic wealthy people do? So they donate to institutions, they donate to foundations, they help buy nets for malaria, they do what else? They help the development of vaccines, they donate money for Parkinson's treatment. There's so many examples, and they're the ones who donate and are anonymous in a sense because they don't want to show. So if we have, more will be asked of us. God is granting us all those resources. What are we doing with them? Next example, in the eyes of many, Simon Peter was weak and inconsistent, right? He was just very impulsive, weak and inconsistent. For Jesus, he represented a radiant spirit entering the shadows of prejudice, who would later escape into the light of the Pentecost to carry the gospel forward. Today, we know Peter, Simon Peter, St. Peter, as the one who led the way, right? Carrying the message of Christ forward. But when Christ saw him and first invited him, he was young, and as all young people, impulsive, weak, inconsistent, but Jesus saw the radiant spirit in him. The same way he sees it in us. He looks at us and says, I know that person has the seed of divinity inside of them, and their radiant spirit one day will serve in XYZ capacity, even if for today we don't recognize that yet. In the opinion of the time, Saul of Tarsus was a rigid doctor of the Mosaic law, right? He was a Pharisee. He knew the law inside and out. He was hardened and tyrannical to some of them. But for Jesus, Saul was a misguided companion who he, Jesus himself, would seek at the gate of Damascus to lead into the doctrine. So Jesus did not see Saul as the tyrant that he was being, prosecuting others, not because of something simple, but because he was defending the law of Moses. Rigid. How many times we are rigid? We are Pharisees. We think we know better than others. Jesus saw his misguided companion, he using his knowledge in a misguided way, and he went and chose him. And what did Saul do? Unlike you and I, he didn't sit there and complain and do a self-pity party. He went and served. He said, okay, I did all these. I was responsible for this persecution, for these errors, for these crimes, and I'm going to go forward the next 30 years because of Paul going out to spread the gospel to the Gentiles that you and I are here, Christians. So what should we do if we have the tendency of see the people around us as Mary Magdalene, inconvenient, or as the tax collectors that are taken away from us? Are we seeing them as having their beautiful feminine or masculine hearts? Are we seeing them as a friend of work, as a friend of service? Are we seeing people not as weak and inconsistent as Simon Peter was seen when he first joined Jesus, but as a radiant spirit that one day carried the gospel forward? Or are we seeing others as rigid, or are we being rigid ourselves, right? So what do we do from now on that we know? Instead of looking at the specks in our brother's eyes, then what do we do? It says, let us observe with love, because only pure love will one day remove the scales of darkness from our eyes, so our eyes are covered, and we see out in others those things that are in us. The scales will fall and we'll be able to see clearly, so that others may appear to us in the blessing of God that they invariably carry within themselves. So, dear friends, today we observe with love, and we wish you a loving, observing day where you and I are together with Christ, fulfilling the duties that Christ gave us today and always. I wish you well. I wish your family well. May we come together another day, God willing, with another Learning with Emmanuel series. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.